So it's packed down time at the Dutch Grand Prix. Not a ton of kind of overtaking and action at the front, but it was enough of a race, a fascinating race, and a fascinating fight now for the World Championship. I'm joined with, as we like to say in the media centre, my colleague, Ronald Voording from the Dutch motorsport.com website. Obviously his local race, he's been a busy man this weekend running around. Fantastic atmosphere this weekend, race back for Max. How was it as a Dutchman? How was the spectacle and how did the crowds take it?
I think it was good, but I have to be honest, if I go back to 2021, the first time we were back here also with a championship fight, then basically every single moment felt special because it felt like surreal to have Zandvoort back on the F1 calendar. And basically, because both of us are doing many races a year, it feels like just one of the many races we go to. So it's kind of normalized away. What is maybe not normal is that's the first time that Max Verstappen didn't win. I think we all saw it coming in a way. If you look back at what happened before the summer break, that it could be much more tricky for both Max and Red Bull than it was in the past. So I think I'm not surprised at all by the result. I am surprised. I think the fans are surprised by the huge gap that I'm sure we will talk about later.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I read a piece this morning. Lando Norris's pole position advantage was the third biggest of the season. Quite impressive, and the biggest by a non-Max Verstappen.
And on a really short lap.
And on a short lap, which is quite significant. But I mean, I spoke to Andreas Stella, McLaren boss, yesterday. I was playing it all down. Said it's the perfect track for McLaren. It's the kind of long, medium-speed corners they excel in. The temperature he came to them. He was saying he was trying to downplay everything, but it's the biggest race-winning advantage of the season so far, bigger even than Verstappen at the season opening Bahrain Grand Prix. And critically, Lando Norris unleashed the fastest lap on the final lap. I'm told by quite good authority that Lando did it off his own back. It wasn't a discussion with the team. I'm told that if he had asked the team would have said, no, don't risk it. But he's done it, he got an extra point. And that extra point is very interesting for the championship, I think, because it means he took 8 points off Max, which is the trajectory to win if he keeps doing this going forwards. They're quite, I wouldn't say super confident, they're still aware they need to bring more to the car, they're pushing on, but they feel the championship's in them, and they feel that what Sebastian Vettel did in 2013, he came back from the summer break, smashed the season post-summer, derailed all Fernando Alonso's hopes. They feel they can do it. From Red Bull's perspective, you spoke to Helmut Marko.
Yeah, as always.
As always, straight after race. What's Red Bull's kind of feeling on where they stack up
I think it's interesting that you come up with the fastest lap, because maybe out of everything, that's what maybe scares Red Bull the most. Because I talked to Helmut Marko immediately after the podium ceremony, immediately after the behind the Red Bull pit box. And he said, the final lap on used tyres, very old tyres, without DRS, and he was going considerably quicker. I mean, Max did not have it in the tyres at that moment. So if you look at the numbers, it's quite frightening for Red Bull in overall, because we were, searching for the numbers during the race. And if you go back to, you mentioned Bahrain, the gap from Verstappen to the first non-Red Bull car was 25 seconds. The gap from Verstappen to Lando Norris in Bahrain was 48. Now he's almost 23 behind, so that's more than a minute. I know Bahrain is really hard on tyres. Red Bull used to be, with emphasis on used to be, really good on tyres, and now they are not anymore. But it's a swing from more than a minute, and that's of course really significant. I asked Helmut Marko about it, and he said it's alarming. Today's result is alarming for Red Bull, and he said something needs to happen quickly within the team, otherwise the championship is under threat. And I asked him which championship, because for the constructors it's quite obvious, but he said no, both, also drivers. So we also should talk about McLaren, the poor starts, because if we go back to the start, if Oscar Piastri had a better start, it could even be a 1-2, because his pace on the hard tyre was impressive until he got stuck behind Charles Leclerc. But I feel like with a better start, it could even be a McLaren 1-2 and Max on P3 instead of 2.
Yeah, I mean, I find it's a fascinating dynamic now, because I think you've got a McLaren team that is fastest. We don't know by how much. Is it, are they a tenth ahead and this here flattered them? Are they much more ahead? And I think also the cars show different strengths. At Spa, I think the Red Bull in clean air was probably the quickest car. Still, Verstappen's pole position showed that. But dirty air is so important now, and that's what derailed Oscar's race. But I think actually beyond that, there's another factor at play, in that this isn't just a fight between Lando and Max and McLaren and Red Bull. I think Mercedes underperformed massively this weekend, and Ferrari was a bit mixed. It was quite a strange weekend, I think, this weekend with the tyres. We lost Friday because of the appalling weather. Then Saturday morning was wet, so there wasn't much running. And yesterday, kind of teams were in and out of tyre windows. And I think we saw Ferrari had a disaster of a day yesterday. Leclerc was, really down in the dumps. We're not fast enough. It's not happening. It's not working. Carlos a bit the same. And then suddenly today they perked up. It's the same story for Daniel Ricciardo as well. Yesterday, completely depressed. Today, much better, much happier. And on the flip side, I think Mercedes were quite strong with George Russell's hands yesterday. Lewis had a poor qualifying, couldn't get the tyres on the knife edge, got the grid penalty, came back strong today, but they were nearly a minute behind. So I think, do you think that Red Bull and Max not only have to worry about not just Lando, they've got to worry about Mercedes as well? Because if he starts losing 8 points, the championships, just within Lando's touch, but starts losing 15, 20, becomes a problem, doesn't it?
But there are two ways to look at it. Because on the other hand, if the other teams can take points off McLaren, it's a positive. And that's basically what Max was thinking going into the summer break. He said, I've got a bit of a buffer, and it's good for me if Mercedes can keep winning races and they take points off Lando. But looking at what happened this weekend, McLaren was just not one step, but 2 or 3 steps ahead of all the others. So I think that's what's worrying Red Bull the most, because if Lando will win the upcoming races, then Max has to make sure that he's second. He has to make sure that he beats at least one McLaren, and that's already quite a tricky task. I think the most important element of this weekend maybe is the upgrade they bought. They always say it's not so significant, but what is really significant is that the upgrade is working. And if we go back to early in the year, Red Bull brought a package in Hungary. They keep saying, it's working, but it's not delivering what they expected. Helmut Marko was talking about the correlation, by the way. He said that based on their simulations, it should have been a much bigger step, which was not the case. Ferrari had their development issues, going back to an old floor, having the bouncing when they introduced a new one in Barcelona. And I think the key element for McLaren is they had the upgrade package in Miami, worked straight away, have the upgrade package now, working straight away again, and that's even more frightening for the opposition.
Yeah, I think that's the most impressive thing about McLaren is every step it's made, it's worked, and it not only worked, they upgraded the car in Miami, didn't do anything much more to it,
exactly.
A few wing downforce levels, and they came on, they brought a little step here, which they've played down quite a bit. They say it's for aero efficiency, they say it's not much performance, and Rob Marshall, their chief designer, likened where they are now to scraping the inside of a jam jar or something in the side.
That was interesting.
Tiny little gains. So we'll see. And the other danger from upgrades is, I think, what we saw at Williams this weekend. Interesting weekend. So Williams, difficult start to the season, overweight car, trimmed it off, bought a massive upgrade package here, big thing, and it all went wrong on Saturday. Logan Sargent, big crash. We understand the team's evaluating.
He can blame me for it.
There you go. You'll be pleased that my colleague Ronald, wherever he goes out to goes trackside, someone always crashes and he always ends up with a floor picture.
So it's me, sorry.
So Sargent's future's being analysed. He may or may not be a Monza. It may or may not be Mick Schumacher. We're working that out. I think that'll be decided over the next time. But from Williams' perspective, promising pace then from Albon against Q3, but the floor was found to be illegal. There's all scans and volumes, and the way cars are measured these days is very complicated, but it was too wide. He was disqualified. Minor fix, but they came forwards. But it's just an interesting weekend, so upgrades can go wrong.
Yep.
I think the other talking point we kind of need to mention is the motorhomes just now is Haas. The ongoing sponsorship issue with Uralkali is trying to be resolved. They were owed $9 million, as part of a kind of package of refund for a sponsorship deal that was cancelled. That payment has gone through, or is going through the system, but until it's kind of confirmed that it's landed, the cars cannot be released because of a court situation. So that's something they'll be developing tonight. We believe the trucks are staying here this evening. Once it's all sorted, they should hopefully be on their way to Monza. Italian Grand Prix last year, Ferrari very strong, but I think we've got a championship battle now on our hands, and I'll finally leave it before we run out of time here. Come on, Ronald, what's going to happen?
Interesting. Looking forward to the start, the McLaren start. They seem quick enough to repair it no matter what happens. But we always know what happens into turn 1 in Monza, so it's quite tricky to solve the wheel spin issues they had on both cars to get off the line better. And for Red Bull, they had the evaluation of the RB20 in the summer break. They thought they had a lot of ideas, which didn't really work here in Zandvoort. Also went for the wrong setup. So they have a lot to analyse, and we have a lot to look forward to, I think.
Fantastic. We'll be back Monza in today's Sunday, so 4 days time. Lots more news. We're expecting a driver announcement as well next weekend. I think you can all guess who that will be. Quite exciting for next year.